John, I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about the future
Okay.
of the financial world. First question would be if you envisage a Blade Runner type of future transformation for financial world.
Blade Runner really was talking about the difference between wealth disparity. That was, you had the very wealthy and the poor. In science fiction world, that's called a cyberpunk. And then there was the Star Trek world, which was sweetness and light, and you had everything made for you. We will eventually get to the Star Trek world, but we're going to go through a Blade Runner world. The wealth disparity is going to get worse, not better. But that's just a mathematical certainty, because the bigger you make the pie, the longer it is from the lowest to the highest. The problem is, if you're somewhere in here, you feel the relative, even if your world is improving. I mean, nobody wants to go back 30 years ago and live with the technology and the healthcare and everything we had 30 years ago. But you still feel like relatively you're not doing as good as the best, even though your world is better. And that is the difference, is the relative difference between the lower parts of society and the upper parts. Even if the lower parts have better technology, better food, better health care, they still feel like somehow or another they're missing out.
What would you think are the most important technologies that will change the financial world?
Biotechnology is by far the most important, because we're going to live longer. I mean, if our lifespans increase by 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, that changes how we manage our money. That changes our perspective of time. Artificial intelligence, for sure, will change the financial world, because more and more what we do and how we do it is controlled by computers and systems that we'll be interacting with. Absolutely, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, ultimately what I think will be free internet service, free Wi-Fi. We'll move to a world of abundance, but the changes, they happen so fast. We'll see more change in the next 20 years than we've seen in the last 100. So go back 100 years, go back to 1917, and think of all of that change, but now it's going to happen in 20 years. It's disruptive, and we don't have the opportunity for generational transfer. It happens all at once. We're going to see a lot of jobs lost. People are not going to be able to replace their jobs at the incomes they had. There's going to be a great deal of frustration, the political back and forth, because what happens is voters think that politicians can solve their problems because politicians promise to solve problems. Politicians can't solve the problems. The problems are happening because society and technology is changing so fast. The problems in society are changing faster than politicians can come up with solutions for. That transition is going to be bumpy. What an individual needs to do is to sit and think, for my situation, how are things going to change? How do I make sure that I don't get replaced? And if I think that I can be replaced, how do I get into a position, a job, a situation that I can't be replaced? Maybe I need to change careers. I'm very, very extraordinarily optimistic about the human experiment. It's going to be a wonderful future. I'm not very optimistic about governments and central banks. I think that they're going to get in the way and will create problems for us. And the frustration of people wanting somebody to solve their problem. Their problem doesn't have a government solution. We're going to have to learn to solve our own problems. And eventually we will. Eventually society figures this out. I'm as conservative an economist as you can be. But we're going to have something like guaranteed basic employment. I don't want to do guaranteed basic income, because we don't get, if I just give you something, you don't get meaning from that. But if I give you a job, if I say, here's a menu of things you can do, and we'll pay you to do these things, now you've got something that you can contribute to society. You feel like you're doing something. Will let us have more of the Star Trek future than the Blade Runner future.
I've seen things you people wouldn't believe. Attack ships on fire off the shoulder of Orion. I watched sea beams glitter in the dark near the Tannhauser Gate. All those moments will be lost in time. Like tears